past year has been crazy. We're just going to pick up and continue on, and I thought I would share with you the books that I've read this past quarter. Starting with December and the move from Indiana to Michigan and living 3 weeks at an Airbnb with pretty much nothing to do. We had to keep really quiet because it was a duplex, and so the people behind us did not like noise. I'm not exaggerating. We had a tickle fest, so giggling and laughing, and we were asked to keep it down. So we walked on tiptoes, kept our voices like this, and had no complaints when we did that. And there was a few times they were like, "Yeah, you're too loud." I'm like, "No, we're not that loud." So we read a lot. All right, so I started out basically December or November, leading up to December, to wrapping up the first classic that kind of started the classic journey for the next month and a half, and that was Old Fashioned Girl by Louisa May Alcott. This is probably one of my top favorite books of hers. This is about a girl named Polly who kind of comes to the city to visit her friend Edith. I think it's Edith. Fanny, not Edith, Fanny. It's Edith. Edith might be in Found Treasure because, I don't know, this also gives me Found Treasure vibes by Grace Livingston Hill. But anyway, Polly goes and visits her friend Fanny in the city, and Fanny has a brother named Tom and a little sister. Oh, what is the little sister's name? Maud. That was easy. Maud. And so she's a little country mouse visiting the city, and it's kind of a classic take on that in some way, shape, or form. Polly brings the innocence and charm to the city, and it makes me think a lot of, in a way, being a homeschooled kid, kind of that homeschooler going out into the world, and you can take a couple things away from it. You can be influenced strongly in the wrong direction, or you can kind of fight it and kind of deal with it in the day-to-day life, being the odd person out. And it's a lot of character building to not be the odd person out just to be the odd person out, but because you have strong convictions. And what I find so interesting is that the old-fashionedness of yesteryear, whatever this was, 19 or 18, I think this was 60s, 1960s. Okay, let's see when this was. The first part of An Old-Fashioned Girl was written in 1869. The demand for a sequel and beseeching little letters that made refusal impossible, and to carry it some 6 or 7 years into the future, was written later. So 1869 plus. And I'll get into the second part of this here in a minute. And again, being a homeschooler, and why I think I love this so much, is that Polly really struggles with trying to be a good friend and decide if what she's doing and why she's doing it is just because she's always done that, or because there may be a reason behind it. And she kind of learns the contentment and what happens when you start allowing all of these influences and people suggesting this or that kind of to start taking over. I do think this is something that maybe Louisa May Alcott may have either really struggled with herself, or maybe something she was seeing a lot happen, because you kind of see that in Little Women as well. Just the old-fashionedness of a family with certain morals and virtues really struggle with the way they are being, because it's just what they know, or because that there may be a purpose behind it. And you know, the more you're kind of allowing these other things that maybe not be harmful, they become harmful because they make you discontent with everything else that your life represents. So anyway, Polly visits with them for a while. She kind of sees the strengths that each person possesses, and she tries to basically help them build those character up. Because when those are stronger, then the vices that the characters have kind of by nature drop a little bit or not be as prominent and something that they really have to fight. So that I really like to see that. The mother in here is definitely somebody more like Fanny's aunt not Bertram, Fanny Price's from Mansfield Park aunt. Why can't I think of it? But in Mansfield Park, Fanny Price goes to live with her aunt and uncle, and her aunt is just like the sickly creature that lays around and has no idea of what's going on and just kind of lives in this dream world. And the mother here just reminds me so much of her. And the father is definitely kind of more distant, but he kind of starts seeing things that Polly's bringing out. He definitely has the father aspect, and then it starts seeing his children that really do need him to be a father, and he kind of starts stepping up into that role. Grandma lives with them. Grandma is a side character that we needed to have more of, but unfortunately she wasn't just such a big part of it. She was and she wasn't, and if you read it you kind of understand. But anyway, it's the first part of it I really enjoyed. The second part kind of, I think, was a little rushed for a sequel. When it ends, you kind of get the aspect of Tom and Polly could be a thing, but it isn't like predominant. And then I think when Louisa Alcott was asked to kind of finish the story, so to speak, and she wrote the sequel, one, it was really rushed. So it's 6 or 7 years in the future, and all these things have apparently happened. Now Polly is going to be a piano teacher, and she kind of moves to the city and kind of sets up shop to help her family, to help herself. And Tom has a girlfriend that everybody has some misgivings about, but he's just gonna go do it. And Polly just kind of has to watch him make a fool of himself with all of this. So that's kind of like a story. But I think what I did like about the second half, even though it felt rushed and even though there's kind of those aspects of it, is that you kind of see her step out of and grow up into the adult aspect of this, of, okay, I don't have to answer necessarily to my mother anymore about the decisions I make. And so she does kind of falter a little bit more than she did as a child, having to, tell her mother what happened. But she kind of grows in that. She kind of realizes, okay, this is going to start spiraling downward. This isn't who I am. I'm trying to be somebody I'm not. And she continues to grow up and grow with that. And she's an old-fashioned girl, and she learns to just kind of embrace it, that she has just qualities that maybe not popular or will get her very far in life, but definitely ones that are worthwhile in her pursuit. And I love that book. I really, really do. But again, that kind of started the classic side of my reading. And so the next one I read was Pollyanna. And I did this as an audiobook. The narrator was okay. She wasn't the greatest, to be honest, but she was okay. And I really did kind of really enjoy the book. I grew up a lot with the movie with Haley Mills, and I know I did see the most recent version on, oh man, I don't remember. They did a pretty good job. It's just a lot more enriching in the book than Haley Mills could do. Haley Mills did a good job. I really liked that book, or that movie, as a kid. But reading this as an adult, there's just a lot more to Polly that, I guess you kind of see more of that. And I also read Pollyanna Grows Up, but I think you're going to get more of Polly that I'm trying to get at later on in here. But you still do. The characters are just more developed in here than they could do in the movie. The only thing that I have to say is I think that they did a better job in the movie of the Reverend. I think you got more of his personality in the movie with Haley Mills than I did in the book. He was just kind of more of a afterthought in the book. I do think that Jimmy Bean and Nancy, actually I have to say this. I forgot all about that. The narrator for Pollyanna, she gave, it was this narrator that I didn't like. She gave Nancy an Irish sound, and she did a really good job in it. And just kind of gave her that character, and it was really, really good. But Nancy was just a deeper character. Dr. Chilton, I think he had more of a character. Nancy had more of a character. We could kind of, Jimmy Bean, they just were more developed. Even though they like maybe came later or different things, it just, Mr. Pendleton, I really think Mr. Pendleton became a deeper character than getting to read the book. I feel like that's all I can say about this book. The characters are more deeper in the books than they were in the movie. It was probably really meaningful to me just at the time because I had left a state that I really, really loved being, and a little town that I really loved being, and I moved to a big city, which I'm not a big city girl, and in just a new place, and just a lot of things that had changed, and kind of putting on the aspect of looking for the good in every situation kind of really touched me and was really making an impression on me, and something that I was really working on. And just kind of all the stuff that Pollyanna was going through, and kind of working in that, kind of learning how to be respectful to her aunt who did not appreciate that or had very strong feelings. It was really interesting to see. How much of an impact that was making on me. And I went from that into Pollyanna Grows Up. Now there's actually several books with Pollyanna, but I think only the first two were written by the original Eleanor Porter. But Pollyanna Grows Up, she kind of becomes, well, there's tragic circumstances. Dr. Chilton dies in this one, and Aunt Polly kind of becomes, and you learn about that like right off. It's also in the back. Aunt Polly just has a more bitterness, and almost to the upteenth degree of bitterness after Dr. Chilton dies, and Pollyanna kind of has to, okay, well, let's figure out what we need to do to make money. I believe before all this happens, there is a family that she kind of helped bring the Glad game to after somebody was in the hospital and things were just looking bleak, and somebody's like, well, let's send Pollyanna to her because if anybody can cure her, it'll be them. That's the thing about Pollyanna. Mrs. Snow. I really liked seeing Mrs. Snow in Pollyanna. That one more, she's funny in the movie, but definitely kind of layered character in the book, but kind of in a similar Mrs. Snow situation of, okay, this lady is just grumpy and angry, let's send Pollyanna to her, and Pollyanna kind of helps build that family up, and then that family comes back to help Pollyanna growing up in helping them with their finances, living with them, paying for their room and board, and all of that. And obviously Jimmy Bean is now in the picture, and he is interested in Polly, and there might be other people that Polly is interested in or not. You know, there's just kind of things going there, the little love triangle stuff that is not, but it is, but it's not, but it is. It's kind of weird. I don't really know what else to say. So that one, I honestly don't think I enjoyed this one as much. And I'm glad that I think she could have gone in a direction with this that I think would have helped it a lot, but because she didn't, it was just kind of there for me. And then after that, we decided in book club to pick up Little Women. for our, after doing, you know, like Louisa May Alcott, Old Fashioned Girl, and then we're just going to do Little Women. I feel like there was another book that we had done, but I don't recall what it is. So we're just going to move forward with this one. Little Women. I have to say, like, when it comes to classics, Little Women has to be one of those ones that it is there for every age, and every time you read it, you just get something more out of it. And as a adult, you know, you kind of watch the dynamics of the sisters as a kid, but as an adult, I really love to read about Marmee and just the wisdom she has of being a mother, and even the things that I'm like, oh, I think things would have gone differently if she had done this differently, but her reasoning behind it is something that I can still glean from. A Little Woman is always going to be one of those books that I just can take away so much each time I read, and every time I read it, I'm always surprised at how many movies and things try to make something between Laurie and Joe, and there never is, and people still do it, and it still angers me to the core. But as an oldest sibling of 9, there was 9 of us, and so I have 8 siblings. The fact that there's 4 sisters here that are just so different, and yet the sister bond, maybe they're stronger between a few than the others, but they're still there. There's still a fight for family. That was really cultivated in our home. And, you know, between me and my siblings, we're definitely different. We have all different types of personalities and aspirations and dreams, and even how we go about things. But there is things like, if there's an emergency, we're going to drop and we're going to do what we can to help you in whatever way, shape, or form you need. And I think kind of reading that in Little Women and just embracing that is really, really neat. It's a beautiful picture, and I know it's what God wants us to do with our siblings as well. And I feel like I'm kind of going all off on that, but it's something that just reading about is that beauty that you just want to keep on cultivating. You know, as we get older, we kind of do our own family things and we do our own stuff. And then you read about it, like with Little Women, and you're like, oh, this is why we need to keep cultivating it, so that we don't do what Joe was afraid of, and everybody kind of changed so much that you don't recognize anything. Now, my thoughts personally is that was actually a weakness of Joe, that she didn't handle change at all, and she didn't like change, and nobody does. But there is going to be change, and you have to accept it, and you can kind of create more issues when you don't. Kind of going off on that, but whatever. So anyway, it kind of went from Old Fashioned Girl to Pollyanna to Little Women. I was really, really enjoying my classics. And then we kind of went a little mystery classic, and I picked up Agatha Christie's Partners in Crime. This is a Tommy and Tuppence. It is not the first one. This is actually a bunch of short cases, if you will. They have a detective agency that is kind of like a front for something else, something more deep that I think it's the uncle needs them to kind of keep an eye out for, and that's going to be the building. Let me just explain it, because it's kind of at the front of the book, and then you can kind of understand what I'm saying, so I don't keep like blabbling. But at the beginning, the uncle gives Tommy this detective agency because the guy that was running it obviously had kind of a more sinister background, and there was like secrets being traded that should not have been traded, and so they kind of want to keep an eye out for it. So any mail that comes in here that has like a certain stamp, they need to give it to the uncle who works with the higher up MI5 type of thing. And so Tommy and Tuppence kind of open this up, and their thing is like, well, we don't want domestic crimes. We kind of want, you know, I don't want to follow a man just to say, tell his wife that he's having an affair with her. I want like something deep and intriguing. And so it's kind of the humor of Tommy and Tuppence. This is my first one. This is the only one that I have. And I read it, and then I watched 2 versions of Tommy and Tuppence. One had the girl, Jenny from Call the Midwife. After reading this, I honestly wasn't that impressed. They made Tommy look like a bumbling fool, whereas Tommy has like a lot of wit and cleverness behind him, and he just didn't have that in the new series. I really didn't enjoy it. But I watched the older one, and I definitely have to say that it was more of what I felt when I was reading this. So I'll leave the one that I prefer down below. It was, I think, closer to the characters that Agatha Christie was doing. A lot of those are very easy to kind of figure out. They're not really deep mysteries, but they do have the Christie red herring, if you will, to them, where she kind of leaves some clues, but it could be this or it could be that, but it's not a fully developed dive into and then there were none type of book. So I did that, and then I did several of these Shatona Havig's Independence Island books. There's like Independence Islands and no, this is Breaker's Point. But I had a bunch of them. That's what I'm trying to say. I had a bunch of them. I have this one here and one more. Actually, right here. I was looking for it earlier because that's what I'm trying to read. This was also Independence Islands. Anyway, there's also 3 more that I have. I am not reading them in order. I just have them and I'm reading them. I had 3 that I read, working through this one. And I read those and I sent them on to a friend that wanted to read them, so she has them. But they're a lot more lighthearted type of read. They were what, you know, after reading classics and all of this, I would say it was like watching a Hallmark movie after watching, you know, something like Don't Go With Me. Something more lighthearted, and it was what I was more or less reading like when we first moved into here and things were kind of chaotic and I just wanted some downtime. I kind of picked those up and read them, and like I said, there's a lot of little things that I really, they mostly have like a 3.5, 4 star as a point of reference. That means I really didn't enjoy them, but I didn't get a whole lot of meat out of them. They are smaller, and that is really hard to do for books to really, you know, get you in and get you invested and wrap it up in a really good way when it's this small. Like I said, I found it more as kind of a Hallmark type of read, something I just needed a lighthearted enjoyment. If I missed a paragraph because I was in a brain fog, it wouldn't have mattered. I could keep going on. So I did enjoy them. I'm going to finish up with these 2, and I will pass those on to her because I know that she's really enjoying them too. So the Independence Islands, there's several of them, these fictional islands. One kind of takes place off of like the southern island, so you have more of the southern, is it called colloquialism? I think that's the word. So plantation aspect, in the sense of like they used to be part of that. Now they're kind of trying to be more known for other things, obviously. And then they have like these other islands that are more French, like owned, and I think there's only those 2. And then there's just all these different authors and stories that kind of intertwined on those islands. And they're just lighthearted fun. Some of them are a little bit more mystery. Some of them just have little depths, or nuggets maybe I should say, in them. But they're more meant to be kind of lighthearted reads, beach reads. So, yeah, those are really, really what I needed at the time. And then more lately, I have been re-listening to the Amelia Peabody. I was on The Mummy's Case, which is the third one, and I was kind of just listening to it as I was kind of getting ready for bed and trying to calm down and just laying in there because I was having some sleepless nights. And my husband kind of started listening, and he was like, this guy is funny, because we were using Barbara Rosenblatt as our narrator, and he was just cracking up at Emerson. And so I started those again. Now, Amelia Peabody, this Amelia Peabody series by Elizabeth Peters, a lot of them, I believe, I think every one kind of has an Egyptian mystery aspect to it. It is turn of the century. Amelia Peabody is kind of comes into money, does her own thing, and ends up on excavations. And in the first one, which is Crocodile on the Sandbank, she has the money, she comes into it, and then her and her new companion Evelyn take off to Cairo, and they meet two brothers, and then it's like, why is somebody trying to kill Evelyn? And so there's a whole mystery there. And then in the second one, Amelia and her husband go and I think they dig up some ruins in Egypt. And there's, where is that? Is that? I'm getting confused because I'm on the fourth one, so I'm like, wait a minute, this is the third. And the second one, oh, what's the second one? I don't know. I just picked up with the third. It's been a while, but I'm listening to the first one with my husband, so that one's fresh on my mind. But anyway, and there's a whole series, and they continue on. They have such wit and humor. It's just really enjoyable to read. There is some just cultural history and all kinds of things that are kind of tied up in there, and there's a mystery, and it's just so much fun to read. The third one that I just finished, again, it's really the narrator that makes it. I don't think I will be able to read those books without enjoying the narrator. We'll see. I don't know. I was kind of collecting them because I suspected I was going to be that grandma, old lady that just picked up Amelia Peabody to read, because I could totally see myself doing that. But now I'm not sure I want to move those books again because they're heavy. But anyway, I enjoyed them. I'm really enjoying them, and they are they're just funny. You know, we kind of go a little bit heavier than the Shatona Havoc books. Oh, that reminds me with the Shatona Havoc. I'm just gonna put this in. I do know that one of my favorite narrators that does a lot of Shatona Havoc books is putting some of those books out on YouTube. If I can find it, I will leave it linked down below if you would like to check it out, because they're really fun. But anyway, going back to the kind of lightheartedness that Shatona Havoc has, but it takes that and it kind of goes a little bit deeper and gets your brain working with mysteries with Amelia Peabody's. And speaking of mysteries, like when I'm kind of in a reading slump, I tend to pick up mysteries because it kind of gets your brain working and thinking and kind of wanting to solve things, which then makes you want to read more and you can kind of dig in more. And so I saw these in Barnes & Noble and broke my we're not going to buy any books rule. I could not find them on my library. I was good before I bought them. I could not find them on my library, and I could not find them anywhere cheaper. But to know me, like, Jessica Fletcher from Murder, She Wrote is probably one of my all-time favorite heroines ever. I mean, Jessica Fletcher and Miss Marple, if you combine those, that's the person I want to be when I'm older. I just really, really enjoy it. I love the poise and class that Jessica Fletcher has, and put that in with the sweet and innocence of Miss Marple, and the just it would be perfect. It would be perfect. And then I saw these. Actually, technically my daughter showed me these because she knows how much I love Murder, She Wrote. And these are YA by Stephanie Kun. The first one is By the Time You Read This, I Will Be Gone, Murder, She Wrote. And it is about Jessica Fletcher's great-grandniece. I am that far into this. Let's see. I believe I've only had one word, and it wasn't like a word, which I have to say is already you're getting high points for me, because reading about the great-grandniece and great-grandson of Watson and Sherlock, within a few pages it was saturated with it. And these are obviously high school kids, and it's just not as saturated. And I appreciate that. So anyway, I just started this. I'm kind of enjoying it. I have a little bit of some red flags, if you will, because it is opening up with kind of more of a, not anti-Christian, but extreme Christianism, and I just have red flags when that happens, because it gets old and it can get distorted. I'm not saying that they're not out there. I'm just saying that typically speaking, when you read about them in books, there is not a balanced view of it. It's just one way or another. Whereas a balanced view would be like, yes, there are extremes out there, but there's some normal people too. So we're going to see where that goes. So these are what I'm currently working on and enjoying. And that's going to be the wrap up for this video. I know that there were some other books that I read, but I'm not going to film those because I recognize what I have here, and I'm going to go with that. So thank you for watching today's video. And until next time, have another cup of coffee and read another chapter.